Dear friends, welcome to today's session. So in this session, we will be looking at the different types of constructors through a program. So first of all, we have to understand, we have already in my previous video, I have shown you how to, what are different types of constructors. So we have default constructor, okay, and then we have no argument constructor, and we have parameterized constructors. So in this particular program we will be looking at the default constructors. Okay, so if we remember about default constructors, so default constructors are basically those constructors which are not explicitly created by the user. It is created by the compiler. It does not have any arguments within it. Okay, so let me first create a class. So class example, I'm taking the same example as that of my explanation video. So there I am creating the class body, and within this I am simply typing the main method, which is public static void main, and after that string args. So and then I'm opening the main method here. Okay, I'll just close the main body of the class. Okay, so here now as soon as I am creating an object of the class example, let me create an object E of the class example with the new keyword. Okay, so let me, okay, new example, and within this, okay, now a new object is created here, which is E. So as soon as this object is created, the default constructor would be called. Okay, so now the default constructor we will not be able to see here. It will be automatically created by the compiler. Okay, so we have to understand that this particular code is not displayed here when the compiler is creating it, but whenever we are creating this object, because we have not created any constructor in this program, the default constructor by default would be invoked. Okay, so let us now save this. So Control S, and in Java programs I will be saving it in the name of example.java. Okay, and then let me open my command prompt, and I have to go to that directory inside desktop where I have placed my program. Okay, so cd space to cd oop, and then Java programs, Java programs, and here I have the program which is Java C example dot Java. So whenever I'm compiling this, automatically the default constructor would be invoked. Okay, now since I have not displayed any command here, okay, I have not used any display statement here, it will not give me any result. All right, so if I want to check what is the default value initialized for anything using the default constructor, so I will be using int I. Okay, and let me simply print the value of I. Okay, system dot out dot println, and here I will be printing the value of I, which is e dot I. Now when I'm doing this, I'm trying to print the value of I. Okay, now here since a default constructor is created, as already mentioned in my previous video, so it will not be having having any value to it, rather than it will be initialized with the default value of integer, which is 0. So now if I am trying to print this, so let me compile this program. Yes, and Java example. So what is the value I am getting here? The default value of int I am getting as 0. Did I initialize anywhere that the value of I is 0 here? No, the constructor has done that. Okay, whenever this object is created, automatically the default constructor is invoked, and that particular constructor will be initializing the value of I as the default value of integer, which is 0. Let me take another variable which is string, let's say s. Okay, and I want to print the value of string here now, so I will be let me concatenate in here itself. So plus, and there is a space, and again a plus, and let's say e dot s. So now let me see what is the output that I am getting. Here also for string I have not initialized anything. Okay, it should give me a value which is null, because the default value of string data type for an object e is null. Okay, so that is why I am getting these values. Had I have initialized some value like 10 or let's say the name, then I would be getting this particular values here. So we have to understand that this is the job of the compiler. Okay, so whenever we are trying to create a particular let's say object, immediately the default constructor will be invoked, and this default constructor is basically the constructor which is created by the compiler. Okay, and immediately it will be initializing the values to the respective default values of that particular data type. Okay, so now let me show you another program which will be demonstrating a no argument, the second type of constructor, which is program to demonstrate no argument constructors. Okay, so here again I will take the same example. So here also we do not have any arguments, so I am creating the class, and let's say the class body. Okay, so once I have created the class body, and here in default in no argument constructor I have to create a constructor. Okay, so example is the constructor which I have created, and let's say I have written it as, there is a print statement which is system.out.println. so I am a no argument constructor. So I am a no argument constructor, right? So this is the statement which will be printed whenever this constructor is invoked. Now what I'll do is I will simply call the main method public static void main, and then string args. So by now we all have understood that without a main method our things will not work. So I'll create an object, example e is equal to new example, and within this I will not pass any argument. Okay, so there will be no argument, since we have already mentioned that this is a no argument constructor, but we obviously have to create the constructor first. Okay, now if I have created this, okay, so this is a no argument constructor. So whenever I am creating this particular object e, okay, whenever this object is created, then this default this no argument constructor would be called, because we have not passed any parameters here. This itself is the call to the constructor. Okay, so we do not have to worry about initializing or calling this particular constructor. We just have to be sure that we have correctly created the object. So let us now save this. So this will be example. Okay, so the previous program also I have saved with example. So let's say I am creating it as example 2. Okay, so I'll make all the necessary changes here. Example 2, then here also it will be example 2, and here also it will be example 2. Okay, so let me save this, and with the name of example 2.java, right? So let me now compile this particular program, java c example 2.java, and After this, Java example 2. Okay, now what do we expect? What should be the value that would be printed? Okay, the value that is inside, or whatever is inside within this constructor, would be called immediately. So I should get a display statement saying that I am a no argument constructor when I'm executing this. Okay, so I have executed this. So let's say, just 1 second. Okay, I think this is not working. I'll just open the terminal again. Sometimes it happens with my machine. Desktop, CD, then I'm going to the respective folder within which I have created the program. Okay, so programs, and then I'll simply compile this. So Java C example 2.java. Are there any errors? No, there are no errors. So I will simply now Java example, okay, 2. So now what I'm getting here is I am a no argument constructor, right? So here also you have seen that this is very similar to the default constructor. However, in default constructor you do not have to write these codes. That means the default constructor will simply initialize any value which is there, otherwise it will just be there. Okay, with the default values it will be initializing, otherwise it will just be there. It will not have any functionality. It will just be invoked, and if at all you need to initialize any value with its variable with its default value, you can do it using a default constructor. Okay, I think these two are clear. No argument constructor and default constructor, though both of them do not have constructors, do not have any arguments. In one we have to create the constructor, and in one we do not have to create the constructor. Okay, so now the third type of constructor that we will be discussing is the parameterized constructor. Okay, so we have already seen the parameterized constructors in our theory session. So now we will just be looking at a what do you call that, implementation of it. Okay, so for that let me create a new program. So in that new program, so let me write it down first, that I'm going to program to demonstrate the parameterized constructors. Okay, so here again I will be creating a class which is example, and then the class body. So within this I will be creating a constructor which will be having parameters. So example, and within this I will be taking the value, passing the parameters of name, and let's say I will also pass the parameter as let's say ID. Okay, so integer type ID. Alright, so then we will be creating this constructor here, right? So this example we have already discussed in our theory session. You can go back to that video and have a look at it. Okay, then we will be creating the main method, public static void main within bracket string args, close it, and then the main method. So within this main method now we will be creating the object example e1 is equal to new example, and within this now I have to pass two parameters. One is the name, let's say Pat, and his ID is 001. Okay, so now these two parameters needs to be passed. This is the format of this parameterized constructor, where I am passing these parameters, and these parameters will be passed onto this particular constructor, and here I will be trying to capture this within a variable, instance variable. Okay, so let's say name here, and this dot id is equal to id. Okay, so these are two instance variables. Now these instance variable I need to declare it right at the beginning of the program. So string name and then integer id. Okay, so I have captured the parameters using these two variables, name and id. Okay, now what I'll try to do is I will be trying to print this. Okay, system.out.println and then let's say student1, and after that for student1 I will be trying to, let me give a small space here. So within this, now I will be trying to print the value of student e1. So e1 dot name. All right, and then plus, I'll give another space here, and then e1 dot id. Now this e1 dot name and e1 dot id, this will be fetched from so this will be fetched from the parameters which are already passed as an argument to this constructor. All right, so now let's see this. I'll save this program, Control S. Okay, so again I forgot to change the name because I already have an existing example here with the name example. So this is example 3 and example 3. Okay, so Control S, and this is example 3.java. So let us now run this program. Okay, Java C example 3.java. So are there any errors? No, there are no errors. So Java example 3. So what is our expectation? I should get the name and ID. So see, student pat1 I have got it, and for some reason I have not got the ID, and this is because I have not mentioned here as ID. Sorry, and my laptop is not working properly. So here as you see, student 1, I'm getting the name as student1 name. Okay, and the value of the ID should be fetched here as e1 dot id, right? So e1 is the name of the student, and id is the id value which is passed on, that is 001. Okay, so let me run this again. Example 3 and Java C example. Okay, student is Pat and ID is, oh sorry, it got printed here because you can see it's 1. Okay, so 001, this value is actually captured as 1. Suppose I would have written here as 101. Okay, so then it will be more clear to you because I also got confused here. Okay, Java C example 3.java, and then I'll run this. So see, Pat and 101. Okay, so these are the two things which got fetched as a parameters from this parameterized constructor. So this is how it works. You can go on creating object of it. Okay, so let's see if I'm trying to call another object here. Okay, so it has similar format. Let's say e2 and I have Patty. Okay, so I'll keep the name Pat and Patty here, and this is 102. Again, now I have to, this is also now going there in the constructor as an argument. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll simply print the value of Patty here with the help of the object and the parameters which have been passed to the constructors. So let me just save this, and here I'll compile it and I'll run this. So see, both the student name and ID is getting printed here. So this way you can go on creating an object, and you can simply pass the value of initialize the values of that particular object inside a constructor, and you can go on calling the constructor as and when you need. Okay, you do not need to go on writing extra lines for to call a particular method and then get it printed like we already did before. Okay, so the same constructor would be used for multiple different objects. So this is all about the different types of constructors which are used in Java. We will talk about more of these things in detail later, and also this keyword will also be discussed deeply in my subsequent videos. So as of now, just do not worry about this. We will be looking into it in our subsequent videos. So thank you.